Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we've made it to the 2035 All-Star break. Rockies are playing our best baseball of the year. We've closed the gap on the Dodgers in the division to just one game as we sit here. A couple weeks before the trade deadline, we're 5.5 games free of the final wild card spot in the National League at this point. So feeling pretty confident that we will get this team back to the postseason this year. Would mark a 10th consecutive trip to the playoffs. We're also trying to win a third straight title with the Rockies. Appreciate all the feedback on our last episode. Agree that the draft worked out reasonably well, but never perfectly. And I have been perusing a lot of the ideas that have been pitched as far as the trade market. I do worry a little bit that the prices for the players that might help our team are a little too high at this point. Dylan Jordan is the guy who we counted on being our third starter this year, coming off of an injury that cost him most of last season. Although his ratings still suggest he could be a useful third starter, his stamina is gone at this point, and he's had a brutal start to the year for us. 2-9 with a 7.40 ERA. Finally pulled him from the rotation not that long ago. And we'll see what he can do in the bullpen for us. The guys that we have as our third, fourth, and fifth starters now, Andrew Painter is a fine back of the rotation starter, and he's been a useful arm in our rotation for many years at this point, since we picked him up in a trade with the Mets following the 2029 season. But he's probably not a three starter. You can say the same thing about Iverson Castellano. 7-3 with a 3.86 ERA this year, so he's definitely done better in his second year in Colorado, but still not necessarily someone I want to count on in that three-hole come playoff time. And then Bernie Barrera recently earned the promotion into the rotation for us. 1-2 record with a 4.70 ERA. Another guy who looks like a fine back of the rotation starter, but not necessarily an ideal number 3 for us, behind Martinez and Schultz. The concern, though, is I look at the options that are available to us, and many of you have suggested some of these players from a quick view as well as others. I don't necessarily see a huge upgrade to the guys we've got in those 3, 4, and 5 spots right now. I like Hunter Brown. I think he's probably a small upgrade with those extreme ground ball tendencies, some positive personality traits in the locker room, good stamina, obviously a perennial all-star and a Cy Young winner over the course of his career. You look at his numbers this year for the Padres, 5-6 with an ERA of just over 4, a WAR of around 1, and he's not necessarily that much better than the guys he'd be replacing. And the tricky issue with Brown is that he's not a pure rental. He does have a $32.5 million contract for next season, so we'd be taking him on for a year and a half. And given the lack of financial flexibility we have after taking 3 players in the first 5 rounds of the draft who were looking for more than slot, we would need the Padres to retain a ton of his contract to potentially make things workable. Kind of show you the numbers there with a even an 80% retention, and it's the top guys in our organization who get the deal done: Leo Martinez, Ted Miller, Kevin Roberts Jr., and Ryan Stone. Take it down to 50%, and we just can't make it work. And as I said, he's probably the most interesting of the pitchers out there right now. We have looked at some of the others. Dominic Vogel. James Ellwanger's been named as a potential reliever to bring on board. We looked at Logan Gilbert and the rest of the crew. And I just don't know if there's a big enough upgrade to our number 3 starter or the bullpen to kind of make a move for any of these players. Thinking about our position players, it's kind of a similar-ish story, at least to me. Bobby Witt Jr. would clearly be the most impactful player that we could bring on in the final year of his contract. Kansas City obviously looking for a ton for him, and another guy, given where we are, that we're going to need them to retain a good chunk of his contract. You can see Kevin Roberts Jr., the only path there to bring him on board. And although there are some other players who could help us a little bit with a bat in the infield or in some cases in the outfield, the prices and the impact of those players, even though we are a win-now team, just are not that intriguing to me, unfortunately. In theory, I think we could make our infield better. But when you look at Ryan Stone at first, Dervy Mahez at second, Ezekiel Tovar at short, and then let's say just for discussion purposes, Ross Nile DePaula at third, along with Cody Schreier and Bryce Rayner as utility infielders, sometimes starters for us. It's not a bad situation, and when we think about the outfield, I agree that I don't love the left field platoon of the youngsters. Currently, Kevin Wayman, who's basically been around the league average-ish offensive player for us, and Chris Roy against left-handed pitchers, who's also been about a league average offensivist player for us. League average-ish offensive player for us. But my thought is, we've only got about 6 weeks now until September call-ups. We're playing good baseball. We're in the race. Probably try to make it through with those two guys as a bridge to the likes of Dingwell and Castro and some of the other young outfielders that we think are a bigger part of our future. We'd love those guys to be eligible to win Rookie of the Year next year for the prospect promotion incentives. So inclined to keep them down on the farm and just hope that Waymont and Roy keep things okay for us over the next 6+ weeks, and we can get those guys, the other guys, added to the 40-man roster, call them up in September, and potentially have them eligible for the playoffs. So we're putting the best roster we possibly can on the field come October, while not necessarily desperately trying to bring on board right now somebody to bridge the gap between now and September and overpaying for the opportunity to do that. So long intro and a long way of saying that I'm going to continue investigating the trade market over the next couple weeks of game time. But right now, I'm not all that optimistic that we're going to do anything that's too impactful. Our financials also definitely constrained, just about $2.6 million, and that doesn't take into account that David Marsh has been, and Manny Soto, who we both offered less than their demands. So it's possible that we're going to need to increase those numbers when they finally come back to us with their response to our original offers, which is going to make the amount of money we have to bring on players in the trade market even lower. But given that there's not necessarily a game-changing opportunity out there in the trade market for us, I don't think it's the end of the world. But we'll find out. And our first-round pick, Manny Soto, not satisfied with what we've offered to him. So as expected, probably going to need to just offer him the full $5.5 million. Says that his patience is running low. This is probably our last shot at signing him. So $400,000 more taken off of our potential ability to bring on some contracts here as we move towards the trade deadline. And some good news, and in addition to the roster as we come out of the All-Star break, Mike Girard, back from a season-ending injury a year ago that cost him most of this season, spent 3 games down in Albuquerque on a rehab assignment for us, went 4 for 10 there, missed out on spring training, obviously with his injury, but with the way he's performed, think he should be ready to help us. The outstanding defensive catcher does have some pop in his bat. He's fragile physically. 24-year-old former first-round supplemental pick back in 2029. Will take over as our starting catcher. That's going to move Nate Harris, who we picked up in a trade last offseason from the Yankees, to a backup catcher role. Good, solid defensive catcher, although not quite as good as Girard with the pitching staff. And Harris with a respectable bat. Did a nice job for us. Put up an 81 WRC plus, a WAR of 1.6, even though the batting average was only 224. Did have a little pop in his bat with 11 homers and 38 ribbies and 246 at-bats. Although Girard is going to be the starter every day, we're going to be playing Harris every third day to try to keep the wear and tear on Girard to a minimum. Kyle Teal, who we picked up in a trade from the Phillies about a year ago, had been our backup catcher the last 2 years. He was a guy who still had minor league options, but with over 5 years of service time has had the right to refuse a minor league assignment, and he's consistently taken advantage of that right. He refused a minor league assignment. We also shopped him on the trade market, and he had essentially no trade value, even though his contract this year of about $1.5 million was fully covered by the Phillies. So we've just waived and DFA'd him. Maybe nobody will pick him up, but it still seems like he's unlikely to accept a AAA assignment on the other end of that. So when all is said and done, we'll probably just be moving on from him for good at this point. We still do have Chris Boone in AAA, so if we have any injuries to Harris or Girard, we've got a competent major league backup catcher there. Boone was basically sent down only because Teal was so prickly about going to the minors. Our preference would have been to have Teal in the minors and Boone as the backup until now, but those are the way things work. But good to have Girard back as we try to continue this really strong July we've had and maybe get past the Dodgers before the end of the month. And we split our first 2 games coming out of the All-Star break on the road against the Diamondbacks. So the loss in the first game back of the All-Star break ended our long losing streak. A couple of issues to touch upon. David Marsh also looking for more money. Derby Mahez, all-star Derby Mahez at this time. Groin tightness, but only a 2-day impact for him. So we're going to put him on the bench to be cautious for the next couple days, but hopefully won't run into the same type of injury issues over the last 2.5 months of this season as have plagued the start of his career and in some ways his development. And we had offered $8.75 million to David Marsh. At this point, again, his patience running low. We're just going to offer him the full amount. I know there's multiple theories on how to deal with the draft pick. Some people are a bit more patient than I and will wait until mid to late August, September to try to get bargains on players before the deadline on September 9th. But especially in a year like this where I'm going to want to know exactly what meager funds we have to spend bringing on guys in the trade market. I'm generally just inclined to try to get the players signed, try to save a little money with the first offer, but with the second offer, not going to fool around, but also not going to wait at this point. But you can see here with those increased offers that we had to make to Soto and Marsh, or that we more accurately chose to make to Soto and Marsh. Only a little over $1 million in money available, so that's going to limit our ability to bring players on and trade even further. And we did win the final game in the desert to take the series 2-1 over the Diamondbacks, so that's positive. Bryce Rayner, fragile, wrecked at this point, utility infielder, also dealing with a minor injury. So this is the risk of us perhaps not trying to make a trade for an infielder. I don't know that we're necessarily going to improve the talent that much, but there are some guys out there who are a little bit healthier than the guys on our team, although admittedly several of the more interesting infielders that are on the trade block right now are also fragile physically, guys who are in their 30s. So don't think that there's some magic solution out there waiting, but we'll see what happens over the next week or so until we get to the trade deadline. And just to put some of the options on the trade market into context rather than me just talking about them to you, Jefferson Rojas, veteran for Atlanta at this point, 30-year-old, wrecked physically, can play second or short at a good level, good speed, solid major league bat, great influence in the clubhouse. He's been a league average or below player for the last season and a half, but still certainly could be a positive addition in the final year of his contract, making $11.6 million. So we would need the Braves to keep a good chunk of that at this point. You can see, even with 80% retention, just not a lot that's intriguing to me to give him up. We have to give up one of the top players in our organization or one of the top prospects in our organization to bring him on board. Just not sure how much an upgrade he really is. Orlando Morales, former IAFA signing in 2030, is a guy who they would take for him. He's the lowest regarded prospect. But Morales having a pretty nice year for us this year, 8-2 combined between high A and double A with ERA in the mid twos. Looks like he's just a guy at the major league level at this point, unfortunately. But ground ball tendencies, can throw in the high 90s, and as we said, only 21 years old. Think there's a decent chance he's going to realize a lot of his potential, hopefully still. Doesn't necessarily have the ideal stamina for a starter. We just saw some of the struggles that Dylan Jordan had with that 35 stamina as far as his performance and the number of innings he could pitch. But also don't know that giving up a left-hander who looks like he could be a useful arm for us down the line for a rental of a 30-year-old wrecked player really makes sense for us, given that, as I noted, I don't hate the infielders on our team right now. Definitely concerned about Mahez and Rayner in particular, as well as Ezekiel Tovar in terms of their ability to stay healthy. But I think in terms of the quality of players and what they bring to the table, doesn't make sense to try to upgrade with someone like Jefferson at this point, or some of the other infielders who are on the market who have some personality quirks or injury issues, and their teams are also looking for pretty material assets in return, in many cases even more significant than what we saw in the case of Rojas. And we split a couple games with the A's. I think there may have been a rain out in there as well, although I don't remember having not looked incredibly closely at the schedule. Lost the first game of a series against the Angels, so at this point we are only 3-3 coming out of the All-Star break, but obviously had a great start to the month of July, losing just one game before the All-Star break in the month. 4 games left before we get to the end of the month and the trade deadline. A couple more at home against the Angels, and then we'll be on the road for 2 in St. Louis. We've slipped to 3 behind the Dodgers at this point, as they've been winning coming out of the All-Star break. So hopefully we can close a little bit of the gap over these next 4 days before ultimate decision time as far as the trade deadline. And if you're wondering about Kyle Teal, nobody claimed him after 7 days, though he refused our assignment to AAA, so we just had to release him, and he is now a free agent, and we wish him good luck in his major league career, which is probably over at this point. And we won the last two at home against the Angels to take that series. Still 3 games behind the Dodgers as they continue to play very well. They're 8-2 in their last 10. We're 7-3 in their last 10. We're 3 games behind in the division as we head into the final 2 days before the trade deadline. 7.5 up on the final wild card spot, though. So the Dodgers have the second best record in the National League. We've got the third best record in the National League, and unfortunately, it looks like one of those years where if we don't win the division, we're obviously going to be in a wild card series, despite having one of the better records in baseball. So the goal is clearly to get by the Dodgers over these final couple months of the season, feeling pretty confident that we will be in the postseason. The issue is whether we're going to be doing it with a first round bye and not having to play until a division series, or doing it in a wild card series that I guess the silver lining is that we would almost certainly be hosting that wild card series at this point, although the Marlins are only 3.5 games behind us. They're having a fine season as well. As we sit here on July 30th, Kevin Roberts Jr. in his quest for a first batting title and a third MVP award in 4 seasons is still playing really well. 344 average, leads the league. Second in homers, or actually third in homers, because Lemus and Villarreal are tied for first at 30. He's only one behind them, though. Leading the league in ribbies, leading the league in OPS, leading the league in batter war. Anthony Pack Jr., the center fielder, not hitting particularly well with a 229 average, but third in the league with 31 stolen bases. Leo Martinez continues to lead the league in wins, added 1 to get to 13 since the last time we checked in. Second in the league with an outstanding 2.22 ERA, and continues to lead the league in pitcher war as he's looking for a back-to-back Cy Young Award here in 2035. I'll spend a little more time offline now, seeing if there might be something to do in the trade market, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not optimistic that we're going to do much of anything. And I just don't think there's a trade for us out there. Infielder Luke Dickerson is another guy that we've been looking at. You can see to pick him up, we have to give up a big player off of the major league roster. They're not even looking for prospects for Dickerson, and Dickerson, almost 30 years old, fragile physically, a guy who is versatile, can play a lot of infield and outfield positions, has some speed, has a solid major league bat, but also not the best influence in the clubhouse with his outspoken personality, low work ethic, and the fragility that we talked about, given that we'd have to trade a guy who almost inarguably is better than Dickerson, and in all the cases is younger than Dickerson, or in the case of Ryan Stone, the same age as him. Don't see that being a prudent path forward for us, so I don't think we're going to be doing anything in the trade market this year. Did get some good news. Our first 2 draft picks are both officially signed and on the team. Still only waiting on the center fielder, Victor Gonzalez, another guy who was looking for more than slot that we made a second offer to last episode, but he's taking a bit more time to make his decision than the likes of Mr. Soto did. And as the calendar moves to August 1st, did get Victor Gonzalez signed, so everyone that we drafted is in the organization and officially signed at this point. We also won the last 2 games of July against the Cardinals, and the Dodgers lost both of their games. So the standings are not looking bad for us. 63 and 43, just a game behind the Dodgers in the division at this point. Roberts Jr., as you can see, has slipped out of the lead in the batting race, but still obviously having a monster season for us and still certainly a chance to win the batting title when all is said and done. We will see how things go. Clearly, we want to have a first-round bye, and winning the division is the only path to that potential first-round bye. We are fortunately playing our best baseball of the year right now. Taking a look at the team statistics, an awesome 19-4 record in the month of July, which really let us close the gap on those Dodgers. Our 63 and 43 record, still a game worse than Pythagorean expectations, so we should be essentially in a flat-footed tie with them if we believe the numbers. Offense remains very good, second in the National League in runs scored, and you can see we're in the top 3 in most offensive categories. We strike out an average amount, we don't walk a ton, and we're only 5th in hits, but otherwise we are a premier offense in the National League, and the pitching staff moving back towards being a premier staff also, 3rd in the league in runs allowed, top 3 in many pitching categories, and we're also a good defensive team. Those of you who have followed me for years on YouTube with these videos know that with pitchers, control is something I am very focused on, and definitely had a lot of struggles with these Rockies over the first several years of this playthrough, with just being forced to play pitchers who walk more batters than I would like. So my heart is warmed at this point to see that we finally built a team that has allowed the fewest walks in the National League at this point. Just 281 walks allowed, 106 games into the season. So that is something positive as far as the way that I like to build a team. Middle of the pack in terms of home runs allowed, but for playing half our games in cores, not bad. Just couldn't find a move at the trade deadline. I definitely feel when we start thinking about this team for the playoffs that our 3rd and 4th starters are going to be guys rather than horses that we're really excited about. With Martinez and Schultz, we should have the pitching advantage in the 1st and 2nd games of pretty much every series that we could possibly play. I guess, if we go against Yamamoto, against Schultz in a game number 2 of a NLCS against the Dodgers, that might arguably be a pitching matchup that doesn't favor us. But most times out there, we're going to be favored in the first 2 games of the series with the pitchers we have on board. Would have loved to upgrade our number 3 starter, but as I talked about, I just didn't see a path there. And I did explore options outside of the trade deadline or outside of the players on the trade block. Just wasn't anything that was realistic to do. I do think when we think about this upcoming offseason, presumably we're not going to be bringing Dylan Jordan back, so we're going to have some money to spend next year, have some other players headed to free agency as well. Perhaps most significantly, the reliever Gibson, who's been really good for us over the years, but has always been looking for a big extension to buy out any of his free agent years. So when we think about next off season and the winter meetings, would love to perhaps turn some of our young outfield depth into a young starting pitcher, not even necessarily an ace, but just someone who could help supplement the rotation behind Martinez. And I say behind Martinez because Schultz now has an opportunity to opt out this season, and if he sticks with us, next season will be the final year of his 6-year contract with us, but he, although he didn't opt out this past off season, has the opportunity to opt out in November. So there could be a lot of turnover in addition to Jordan and Gibson on the pitching staff as well. So would love to supplement this team and the pitching staff with some bridge guys to some of the really good young talent we have on the pitching staff in our minor league organization. But that at this point is a project for the off season, and we're going to hope that having two aces at the top of our rotation is enough when we get into some short playoff series. And we will find out next time around whether we are able to guide this team back into the playoffs and whether we are able to get past the Dodgers and hopefully earn a first round bye here for the 2035 playoffs. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.